Our gospel reading for this morning comes from the 8th chapter of Mark. As Jesus has moved deep into his ministry and more the focus is towards the coming cross, he begins to teach his disciples about the meaning of his call. And we hear in today's reading a reading on the nature of who Jesus is. So let us listen this day for what the Spirit is saying to the church. Jesus went on with his disciples to the villages of Caesarea Philippi, and on the way he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that I am?" And they answered him, "John the Baptist, and others Elijah, and still others one of the prophets." He asked them, "But who do you say that I am?" Peter answered him, "You are the Messiah." And he sternly ordered them not to tell anyone about him. Then he began to teach them that the Son of Man must undergo great suffering and be rejected by the elders and the chief priests and the scribes and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. He said all this quite openly. And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But turning and looking at his disciples, he rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan, for you are setting your mind not on divine things, but on human things." He called the crowd with his disciples and said to them, "If any want to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake and the sake of the gospel will save it. For what will it profit them to gain the whole world and forfeit their life? Indeed, what can they give in return for their life? Those who are ashamed of me and of my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, of them the Son of Man will be also ashamed when he comes in the glory of his Father with the holy angels." The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
I know that there are a number of you out there who do not use Facebook, but I know that most of you know what it is. You've heard about it. You know, no doubt, that you can go on there and make friends on Facebook who you can now see what they post on their account, everything from what they had for breakfast to their most deep musings on the meaning of life. But you may not be aware that there are a number of other things you can do on Facebook. There are all sorts of polls and surveys that are circulating there, and there are all kinds of causes and groups that you can join. When a friend of mine joins a cause, I see on my page that they have joined it. Joining it's a lot like getting a friend, an individual friend. You just click on it. The number of these causes and groups is rather amazing, and there are all sorts. There's ones that are just for fun and entertainment. There are ones that are serious causes. There are ones that are just downright bizarre. But the other day, one of my friends joined one of these causes, and so there it was on my page. There was a little picture of this person, and beside the picture of her it said, "Grace has joined the cause, put Christ back into schools." And right under that it indicated that 900 and something thousand people had joined this cause. Out of curiosity, I clicked on the cause to see what it was, but that was about it. I generally don't join the causes on Facebook, and I saw no reason to make an exception for this one. Not only did I disagree with a number of the fundamental tenets listed on this page, but then there is the basic problem of figuring out what in the world it means to put Christ back into the school. When people talk about putting Christ back in school or back in Christmas or back in anything else, what they mean varies a lot depending on what their image of Jesus is. All you have to do is look at the various messages and actions from different Christians to figure out that this is all over the map. Joel Osteen, for example, seems to think that Christ has something to do with God wanting you to have a big house and a fancy new car. There's another Christian group that pickets the funerals of American soldiers, holds up signs as they do it that say, God hates fags. Their understanding of Christianity says that these soldiers' deaths are part of God's punishment on America for not hating gays enough. And of course, there was that pastor down in Kentucky who asked all his members to bring their guns to worship in order to celebrate July 4th and honor the Second Amendment. But of course, on the other side, there are those who insist that to follow Christ means to be a pacifist. Roman Catholic priests in Latin America have been killed for standing up against their own government's treatment of the poor. And John Fife, a pastor and former moderator of this denomination, was convicted in the 1980s of federal immigration law violations when the sanctuary group that he helped found shielded illegal immigrants who had fled to this country to escape the death squads in their native homelands of El Salvador and Guatemala. Put Christ back in the schools? Which one? Which Christ? This question of who Jesus is really drives our scripture reading for this morning. It's a question that has multiple layers, and Jesus addresses the most basic of those when he asks his disciples, who do people say that I am? The answer that they have heard, John the Baptist, Elijah, one of the prophets, put Jesus in pretty select company. And all of these answers see Jesus as in some way heralding the coming of God's reign, of the new day, the new age that many Jews at that time were hoping God would bring soon.